Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you once again for tuning in to the YouTube channel that I have started that's entitled Iowa Prison Perspectives. My name is Sue Hutchins, and once again, this is a collaboration between Living Beyond the Bars of Iowa, which is an organization that I founded maybe 6 or 7 years ago, that is a support network for loved ones, and also we have a reentry network for people who are getting out of prison, and Iowa Justice Action Network, and Iowa Cure. Those are the three organizations that I collaborate with to do particular this particular channel. I can be reached, and I hope you will contact me about what you think and how you feel about what I'm doing here. And I can be reached at Iowa Prison Perspectives at gmail.com. And that's IA Prison Perspectives at gmail.com. The whole purpose of this channel is to inform you, the public, about the effects of prison and what prison is like for people who are involved in the system and affected by the system. I interview people who have been in prison, people who have loved ones who either are in prison or have been in prison, people who have worked for the criminal justice system in Iowa at one time, and people who, like myself, are advocates and supporters of wanting to see some positive movement forward for the prison system and for the families of people who have someone in prison. So please contact me and let me know your thoughts and feelings. And if you feel like you're someone who has been impacted by the system and would like to be interviewed, please let me know that also, because I'm always looking for people and wanting to interview people who have been impacted and affected by the criminal justice system. So today we are very fortunate, once again, we're always fortunate to have who we have. Today we have a woman whose family is impacted currently by the criminal justice system in a very tragic way. And I'm going to let her tell you as much as she wants to about her story and as much as she is comfortable with. I really admire her willingness to expose this information so willingly and so openly. And I also thank her family for supporting this at the same time. So let me introduce you to Wendy. And Wendy, it is all yours.
All right. Well, hello. And I have to say, Sue, it's wonderful to see you again. I feel like with everything that's gone on this year, I've lost track of time. And, it's great to see you. Great to talk to you because it has been a while. And for those who have not met me, I am part of Iowa Cure. I am the president. I have been around for quite a few years now. My journey started about 12 years ago when I started noticing a lot of disparities in the criminal justice system. And it also started in church with forgiveness. So it's kind of a double, trying to think of the word here, double issue going on in my life. Realizing in church, to forgive people, visit prisoners, and, just like letting go of the power of what forgiveness can do. And also the disadvantage that are in prisons. And I was also seeing things, everybody's watched Dateline, everybody watches Cold Case, everybody watches those shows. And just to suddenly see the disparities in the systems and very much the wrongdoings. So I didn't sit at home anymore. I went and I got my paralegal degree. Decided some way, shape, or form I knew I was going to help somehow in some way. And I at the time worked for Nationwide Insurance. I was working in a call center at the time, and I was like, I'm going to work in a prosecutor or a defense office someday. And I had all these dreams, all these thoughts, and everything. And like 17 years later, I'm still in insurance. So since I haven't been able to get into the
It
next step.
happens. However, I'm glad that you chose the path that you chose to be
Yeah.
involved with Cure and that we have met. So I'm grateful for
Yes.
that.
Yes. So I very much, since I wasn't able to really get a career in criminal justice as of yet, it doesn't mean that I won't take that path eventually. It just hasn't happened right now. I chose to take it in advocacy and volunteerism and volunteer my time and really try to get the issues resolved out there because there's just so many of them, from mental health to homelessness, racial disparities, education. I mean, when you go outside, the world's a hot mess wherever you look. And there's a lot of things we as people can really help with if we just, open our hearts and get out there. And when I started my advocacy journey, it started with Iowa Cure. Gene Basinger was the one I reached out to. And at that point in my life, I didn't know anybody in the criminal justice system. I don't think I had known anybody who had gone through prison at that point in my life. Like, I'm really trying to think back here. Never knew about reentry, never really knew, the systematics behind it. So you need to learn. You absolutely need to learn step by step, scenario by scenario. And over time, and Sue, you can attest to this, you meet these people over the past probably 10 years that I've been doing this that are just grief stricken with, their loved ones going to prison.
Yes.
And that's very, very, very difficult to watch. And a piece of me always said, I want to relate and I want to be sympathetic, but I've never been in those shoes. So I don't
Right.
know how that feels. So that
Mhm.
was one thing I really absolutely struggled with over those times, because you do very much want to be vulnerable and put your heart out there and help these people, but that one piece wasn't there. And this past year, unfortunately, my uncle was charged with first degree murder of killing my aunt. And so, suddenly that all of those things people talk about, all of those feelings, all of, everybody has a scenario of that moment they get told, like they go blank or they go deaf, or, they feel heat going through their body, or, their breath gets taken out of them. Um, that is absolutely true, because you feel that all at once. And
And
it's a
that's what it was
surreal
like for
feeling.
you? Can you talk specifically about what it was like for you to get that news?
Um, well, I remember my mom called me, and to give a little bit of backstory on what happened, and I'll probably divulge into this a little bit more later. My aunt was very ill. She's been suffering with medical ailments most of her, well, probably about at least the past 20 years for sure. It's progressively getting worse. But for at least 30 years, she's been struggling with all different ailments. And 2 weeks before this had happened, my mom and one of my other aunts was at their place quite a bit, trying to help them out, trying to, get lined up doctor's appointments, and noticing rashes. And they were noticing, like, my uncle just seemed exhausted, just overwhelmed and trying to remember things. He was having a hard time driving. He kept saying he need help, he need
What are
help.
their ages? What are their
They're
ages?
75.
Okay.
Yep, they're both 75, both retired, both at home. So my uncle became pretty much the primary caretaker of my aunt, and he's does all of her medicines, her bathing, and everything. And so my mom was there 2 weeks, every couple days, 2 weeks, going to medical appointments, and she would then relay the information to me, which I don't want to divulge too much of that third party information since I was not the one physically there. I don't want to speak and repeat what they said, because, game of telephone. I want to
Right.
kind of be careful with that. Um, but I remember when she called me, it was Monday morning about 7:30, and I was just getting logged in. I work remote. I was getting logged in, and my mom had called, and I seriously thought it was a phone call about her meeting up with my aunt and uncle because they're coming here to Des Moines to get some neurological testing done. And instead, I answered. I was just like, "Hey, did you guys leave?" Thinking, optimistically they're on their way down. And she was just like, "No, no." She's like, "She's gone." And I'm just like, I was like, What?" Like, I seriously thought it was like an aneurysm or something that was undiagnosed that they had been trying to find this whole entire time, because she had so many appointments, a blood clot, stroke, heart attack. Like, I thought it was something like she went in her sleep. And then she had said to me at the time, these are her exact words, even though it was not 100% correct. She said um, that my aunt was gone and that my uncle, he shot her last night. And
Oh
all of a
my.
sudden, I mean, just those words were the ones that were just like, this horrible piece of me, and I feel like I'm going to go to hell for saying this, but this one piece of me was like, with how sick she was getting, it was like a sense of relief, like, oh my gosh, it's over. But then this other sense, like, oh my God, what in the
Right.
heck just happened? Like, and
Yes.
so, yeah, I got hot throughout my body. I just remember I didn't breathe. And then, you know how sometimes when you're in shock, 5 seconds could feel like 10 minutes, but it's actually a very short period of time. So I know I was going through that. So I don't have a whole time of how long that took. And we started talking about it. And, we were just saying things like, just the disbelief. And he was not the type of individual to do that. And my mom started blaming herself, saying, I should have done more. I should have seen it coming. I could have stopped this. And next thing I know, I was the one reassuring her, this is bigger
Sure.
than what you realize it is. That this is
Sure.
very much, this is not something he planned just to like get rid of her, and he hated her and he was sick and tired of her or wanted life insurance out of her. Obviously he had something very much going on himself, something very, like, he snapped or he was delirious, or he had a manic moment himself, because it he I could, and I really hope my family members don't watch this, but I hope they do. I have other probably family members that if someone said that they had killed their spouse, I'd probably be like, yeah, saw that coming. So for it to be this family and this couple, it was a blow. It was a
Total
complete
shock.
blow, because they had just had their 50th wedding anniversary, and he was just so jazzed about that anniversary. His parents didn't make it that far. They weren't married that many years, and him and my aunt had made it that far. The flowers, the food, the pictures, the venue, they just invested in it, and it was beautiful. And his excitement, like, it just radiated through him. And I'm sorry, men don't get excited about stuff like that.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
And yeah, and just so walking through all of that with him and everything, it's just, it's a testament to the type of person he is. Um, I never personally knew him to be violent or angry. I never saw him mad. I always saw him very kind, very nice. He was always very interested in what I was doing and how I was doing. Where I have other family members that I'm just like, keep them away from me. I don't want them to come by me. So again, I hope they don't see that. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
so,
families can be difficult. Families can be difficult.
well, I come from a very, very large family. I was trying to count it the other day. I think I have 48 first cousins. I think, if
That
my
is a
calculation.
small city.
Yes, it is. And that's not including their spouses. And, I've had a couple aunts and uncles that have divorced and remarried. So I have cousins that have one dad and maybe another cousin with a different. So yeah, the family's huge. And so when I say there's some that it's like, nah, I go away now. Well, a
Yeah.
small city.
Right.
It's always the some that you just try not to associate with.
Yeah. You can love everybody, but you don't necessarily get along with everybody.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
so, and this
Exactly.
man, it sounds like, as you describe him, he was very kind and generous, generous with his time, generous with
Yes,
his love, and he really took care of his wife. It
he did.
sounds like was she bedridden?
I don't think she was completely bedridden by
Okay.
that point, but I know she was having a really hard time walking, and there was something else going on, and I don't know if they figured this out. And so I'm just going to say what I think, and not necessarily what's fact based. There's something going on with her swallowing and her throat. I don't know if it was a virus. I don't know if there was lymph nodes. But she had a very, very difficult time swallowing, for whatever medical reason. And yeah, she had been to like neurologist. She had been diagnosed with MS, I think in the 1990s, and she was also diagnosed as bipolar, I think in the 1980s. The exact timeline of the chronological order, I don't know, but I can attest, I know for a fact she did have those two ailments.
And
So
did
yeah,
your uncle have any psychiatric issues? Did he have depression or bipolar, anything that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
If he did, it was to me well managed. Because some people you can kind of get a vibe like, oh, they're going through something right now, so you kind of just walk through life with them. And then
Right.
other people you just kind of don't get that suspicion. And I never
Mhm.
got kind of got that vibe from him because he's just always so who's involved with people.
Yeah.
And he liked sharing stories. Like he always liked telling me stories about my grandpa and grandma at the farm, even though he wasn't a biological sibling or biological uncle. He would always talk about there's an old farmhouse at my grandparents' place. It's now long torn down. It was the original pioneer house. It had started on fire in the 1970s, and then my grandparents rebuilt. But I remember I'd always go out there as a little girl, and he'd be out there, and he'd be like, "You see that room over there? That's where we found the baby bobcats," and just constantly. And he'd be like, "Oh, well, when your aunt and I would come and visit, this is the room we slept in over here." And just all these stories of him watching my grandma quilt, or going hunting with my grandpa. And yeah,
So he
a
was
lot
very
of core
involved.
memories.
Yeah, and very
he,
involved with the
he
family.
was.
Very, very, well, very
Yes.
involved with the family.
Yeah.
So,
it
so you got the call that your aunt was gone and that your uncle had shot her. And what happened at that, right after those first few moments?
well, the sense of shock came in, obviously tears. My mom did not want to share the news. And that's when the conversations, just the reassurance to one another, like suddenly I went into mama mode, comforting my mom that she didn't do anything wrong. So it was one of those moments, I think, after everything she had seen and heard, she needed a mama bear or a baby bear holding their mama bear. I don't know how to really
Sure.
describe that.
Yeah, 'cause she's been
And
through a lot.
yeah, yeah, she had seen a lot. And I remember crying. I just remember just couldn't believe, like all of the shows they say you just can't believe it. Like, how did this happen to us? And when we talk about all these families that we see along the way, that is a completely normal emotion. And I think those are the most notorious words that will ever come out of anybody's mouth
Yeah.
when they go through a process like this. And then I remember she said that she needed to call my brothers, and then my sister lives out. She's in the Pacific Northwest, so it was very early for my sister, so she had to wait to call her. And she made her phone calls and everything. And I remember I and this is where things kind of get blurry for me. um, I remember trying to find anything and everything I could online about it. Where he was at, what courthouse, and I almost drove to where they lived. Well, that's not the county seat. The county seat's 30 minutes in the other direction. So kind of glad I didn't drive one way, having to go the other. Because I kind of went into that flight mode of I need to go save him. Like, I need to go make this right. I need to help him. I need to, all these things. Just like it's like a snow globe. I think is the best thing you can describe. Like, when you hold a snow globe, like, things kind of move around, the water moves around. But once you really, really, really shake it, everything's blurry. Everything is just like everything's out of control. And that's really the way my brain felt at that time. And I remember I left the house, I didn't have shoes on. And then I started driving, and that's when I realized I didn't have shoes on. So because you're not
Yeah.
thinking, you're not in your right state of mind.
Mhm.
And I went to the courthouse only to find out that they had had his hearing at the sheriff's office. So I was just like, oh, this was worth my trip. Like, kind of PO'd at myself that I shouldn't have known better. So anger kind of set in there. And then I returned back home. And then I kept Googling to try to figure out, okay, what's going on in the process? Where are we at? And that's when the news articles start hitting. And what I think hurt the most out of all of it is the fact that we actually found out that she didn't die of a gunshot wound. She died because her throat was slit. We found that from the media.
Oh my.
And
You
so
found
that
out from the media?
we found out from the media. Yeah.
And how do you feel about finding that out from the media?
Me personally, I knew there was nothing I could do about it because there's the freedom of speech, which I very much respect. But I think that there is an absolute lapse that some way, shape, or form family should have been told first. Somehow, some way, whether it
Somehow.
was a mass text message or they did the next of kin first, something, because like I said, this is absolutely nothing against the publishers of these news articles. They're doing their job. That is
Of
reporting,
course.
that is journalism. But a piece of me felt insulted that I didn't know first.
Yes. And that the family, I've heard a lot of families say on Dateline and also in person, people that I've worked with say that that they just felt so violated that they had to hear it on TV rather than hear it from a police officer or a coroner or somebody in a
Yeah,
position of authority, that the chief of the hospital, the head of the hospital, a nurse, somebody
yeah,
making contact with the family so that it does not come at them on
yep,
TV or on the radio. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So yeah, and it
I'm
was
so
like
sorry.
lightning speed that it came out too. I was just like, the heck. And so then I called my mom. God, I remember calling my mom, and her other sister, because she only had two sisters. She had the one that passed away, and then she had one that lives close by her. So my other aunt and her husband were there, and then my dad was there, and she put me on speakerphone, and I said, I don't want to be the one to say this, but I'm going to read this news article to you. And I read it to her, and it was just stellar silence. And then I hear my other uncle. He was just like, he slit her throat,
Mm,
like almost like the way he termed it was, is he out of his mind?
mm-hmm.
Like, who does
Disbelief.
that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
that is not, to
In his
my
character.
personal opinion, not his character, but like, it's not a normal way to really go. Like, it's more bizarre for me because you hear so many gunshot wounds. You hear of wives poisoning their husband for the insurance money. And so it's like, and usually a lot of these cases that I was reading up on, the husband takes his own life too, or the other spouse. They usually go with them. So that not having happened kind of told me, I really think he would have gone with her. If he was in a completely different state of mind, I think he loved her enough that he would have gone too.
Mm-hmm.
However, it had been. So that's what makes me think he was not there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and you'd said earlier that he had been taking care of her and not getting sleep and not eating well and worn out, overwhelmed, and exhausted.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he very well could have had a break.
Yeah.
Very well could have. I mean, that's entirely possible. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that that did happen. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that given
Yes.
those circumstances, it certainly could have happened.
Yes. And we're only human. You know, there's only so much we can take. You know, we have to have food and water to survive. You know, we don't even necessarily have to have clothes and a roof over our head because depending on where you live, you may not need it. Especially if you live by the beach. You could just sleep in a canopy all the time. Um, but you absolutely have to have sleep. Your body cannot recharge and function if you do not have sleep. I mean, I've been sleep deprived. I've had insomnia before, and let me tell you, I was not a pleasant person to be around. Like,
Well, and too much sleep deprivation can lead to psychosis, of a form
yes,
of psychosis.
yes,
It's one of the greatest torture effects, the torture techniques that people use to affect prisoners.
yes,
So
yeah,
I'm really sorry
yeah.
that
Thank
I'm
you,
really sorry my heart goes out to your whole family on that.
thank
It
you.
must have just been an overwhelming shock.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it shocks me right now to hear that. Just the thought of all of that happening in your family, in anybody's family, but in your family in particular. So now you have the information about what had happened. And then you went and couldn't get to see him. I'm assuming you did
No,
not see him that day.
no, I didn't.
So if you would talk a little bit about kind of what happened next. When did you see him? How have you been treated by, how were you treated by the police? How were you treated by the district attorney? How did they
Yeah,
decide to charge with first degree murder? That sort of information.
yeah. Well, Rick, my uncle was he was taken right away, taken into custody and booked. And I didn't hear from him. This happened on a Sunday. I think it was that Wednesday. He had called and because I set up an account online, for him to be able to contact me and write me and I can visit and everything. Because yeah, there's a completely different process in jails than prisons for visiting and letter writing and everything. It's polar opposite. So I knew what to do and to get set up so I could at least guide people that needed to get that set up. I could at least walk them through that process. And
Which
he
I
called
might
me.
say your family was very fortunate to have you because most families don't
Yes.
know how to do that. Most families in that position don't know what to do
No.
and they don't have anyone to guide them through that. So
y-
it's something to be grateful for in the midst
Oh
of this
yeah.
horrible tragedy.
And even I did a lot of FaceTiming with people, I did a lot of Zoom, sharing screens. I text people like PDF documents. And sometimes some people were like, "Hey, I can't get past this." And I'm like, "We'll do this." And just it was probably 20 people that I helped to get that all set up.
A lot of
And
people.
it was a good feeling, it was a satisfying feeling because, I felt, of all those years of, some people in my family kind of being like, well, this is what she does, and they just kind of go about their business. I felt appreciated because that was something they needed at that time.
I'm sure you were appreciated. I'm sure they appreciated you a great deal at that point in the midst of the overwhelmed, unbelievable shock that somebody knew what to do.
Yeah.
They could go to somebody.
Yeah.
So
And
go ahead.
then, yeah, he called me that Wednesday night and it was a very, very brief conversation. And the echo on that phone was horrendous. It's like, you're paying how much money? And I could barely hear this guy. I mean, it was this god awful, like horrible noise. And he apologized. He's like, I'm so sorry.
This is
And
hard.
I just said thank you. Like, what was I supposed to say to him? Go to hell? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh my.
she's not coming back, but that doesn't mean I still don't care for him. Like, I'm not happy with what he did,
Right.
but all those years, like, of being in the family and being a wonderful person, this was a horrible act, still doesn't change how I feel about him. Like, he still is a very good person and cares. And then he started contacting like my dad and trying to get some things kind of sorted out with the house and because he didn't know anything about the process. He didn't know, I don't know if he still knows what to expect. His house is sitting empty. Is someone taking care of it? Is someone getting his mail? Like all those questions. Like he just doesn't know because he's in a shattered state of mind. And then the funeral came and we really didn't hear a whole lot from him, which I really don't blame him because it was so sad him not being there because he had been there for every single aspect of so many people's lives, from graduations to weddings to first communions, Thanksgivings, holidays. I mean, you name it. If my aunt couldn't make it because of her health conditions, he did. And so it was absolutely a feeling that I cannot describe or put into words. His presence not being there was very, very difficult. Um,
Tragedy upon tragedy.
yeah, yeah, it's just like, yeah, there's no word. I cannot think of one single word. And we she had a very beautiful funeral. The kid that was their ring bearer in their wedding actually is now a Monsignor, and he did the mass, and he did a very good job. Um, the church was full. I could not believe how packed the church was. Like, it was just in a very it was a small town that my mom and my aunts and my family grew up in. Population, I think there's only 10 houses in the church, and there's not even a tavern there anymore. Um, it's where my aunt had been, confirmed and baptized and had her first communion. She didn't have her wedding there, because they got married out in Omaha. Completely packed. Just, I'd never seen so many people at a funeral in my life. And, it was just a testament to the community that they had an impact on, and the people they knew and they loved throughout their life. And so I knew it was a good celebration, and it was a peaceful celebration. But also this other piece, there was that elephant in the room, like,
Exactly.
a lot of
Exactly.
people didn't want to talk about what happened, and they didn't want to talk about my uncle. They wanted to make it about my aunt, but it's like, well, we're grieving her, but we're grieving him too.
Exactly.
Because it's like two people died that day,
Hmm.
not just one. One's dead and buried, and the other, it may be civilly dead here pretty soon.
Hmm.
And so family members were calling each other like, hey, try to keep the talk about it down, which I get. But there were some people that did come that just needed condolence about the whole situation, not necessarily just my aunt's life, but they were really trying to reckon with everything. Because, oh, I lost your volume there.
Oh, to reckon
Sorry.
with what happened and why it happened and
Yep.
how it happened and what's going to happen now,
Yes.
all of those unknown questions.
Yes. Like, I had a cousin who, her and I aren't necessarily close. Um, she did not know what had happened until the Monday before the funeral. My aunt's funeral happened, I think, 2.5 weeks after she was killed. And my cousin was actually, she was in Japan, I believe, and she was teaching. And she came back the Monday before the funeral, and they decided to tell her Monday what had happened when she got back. And so she was just a basket case. Like,
Mhm.
I'm like this girl that was kind of mean to me and bullied me growing up. I'm like holding her head in her hair, just like, what do I do? I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'm trying to console her. And, she's just like, just no one will tell me what happened. No one will tell me if this is actually true. Like, and, she was just trying to get some answers. And then some people are like, well, we're here to talk about our aunt. And she's like, well, no one said to me. And, because her sense of shock was happening raw live there. It didn't happen 2 weeks ago like everybody else. Like, she got just the crap end of that stick. And so I just took her outside. I let her, I mean, she ugly cried. Like, I had to remind her to breathe. And, I was just holding her, and I told her the truth. I told her the truth, what I knew. Um, and I said, there's some pieces of this you are gonna have to go to my mom to ask to fill in some of those parts. But yes, what happened is true. And there's a better sense of relief. Obviously the questions came out that everybody had asked. And so, as bad as this is going to sound, it was one of those vulnerable moments between me and my cousin we've never ever had before, that I will remember
Yes.
later on in life
Yes.
about her,
Of
because we
course.
just didn't have those memories growing up, because we're picking
Before.
on each other all the time and being mean.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, so it's one of those where you carry each other right there. And then after the funeral, I initiated this because I knew this was out there. There was that victims' rights law that goes into effect where you have the right to know like where the phase is at in the process, the charges. You can do a victim impact statement, like that whole list of the Iowa victims law. I can't remember the whole name of it off the top of my head, but
Which
I
is
have
really important for people to know that they have rights. They don't necessarily, I mean, nobody really tells them that.
they don't and
So
and
it's good, that's good information for people to have when you are the victim or the family of somebody who has been a victim. You have some rights.
and let me tell you, they might as well just take that amendment legislation, light it on fire. It's absolutely worthless. We met with the prosecutor, my mom, my aunt, a couple of my uncles, and oh gosh, her name's it was a victim advocate resource out of I think it's not Everly Ball. Um, I can't think of the name of the place. It's really like at the tip of my tongue right now, but she was on the line more for my mom's sake, not for the prosecutor or anybody else there. And we joined this meeting and it starts out with how sorry they are that this happened and this is unfortunate and that whole spiel of how impactful it is, and I don't remember the exact words verbatim. um, but then he went into talking about that he's going to proceed with first degree murder, which to us was a little bit of surprise, but
This
like to
was the
me it
district
wasn't.
attorney. You're
It
talking,
was the
yeah,
district attorney, yes. And I was just like, and it got awkwardly silent. Like we were all just like staring at him. Like we all knew, even though my family members don't know charges and counts and all that, they knew what first degree murder meant. And after a little bit of an awkward silence, probably a good 30, 45 seconds, my aunt nonchalantly asked, she's just like, okay, so I understand, first degree murder has like a premeditation element to it. What are the other charges that are out there? Meaning, I don't want to know for this sake, I just want to know for my own to know.
to
And
know.
he said to her, he was like, well, what does that matter? At this age, he's going to die in prison anyway, no matter what sentence I give him. And I just
Wow.
remember, I,
Wow.
I just remember everything inside of me just like sunk. And
My.
instantly, I was so disgusted with him that I was just like, you want to know what? This is a very, I did say it out loud, but I was like, in my mind, I'm like, this is a very bad idea. I am very, very embarrassed. I put my family up to this and told them about this. Um, and because it did not go well at all. And my aunt cried. And it's I am like
Of course.
I'm a bear. And so like I'm sorry, there are people in my life you don't make me cry. One's my kid, the next is my mom, and the other ones are my aunts. You don't make them cry. And so to know that that had hurt her that deep, I was like, you just nope. I do not like you. So obviously the raw emotion in me was very much coming out at that point. I didn't even want to speak to him. And it kind of got to the point of awkwardness that he said he would like to have all of the family members' information because my mom had my mom's one of nine, and so obviously my aunt was one of those nine. So there is another um, seven siblings that need to be contacted, and so we forwarded all that information. And to date, they've never been contacted.
That's horrible. That's
None of them.
horrible.
None of them been called. And there was a point in that conversation that we were under the impression when I read the victim's right pamphlet, that he would at least hear our voice and hear our concerns. We didn't even care. Yeah, because my mom tried saying something to the effect, and this is not verbatim. I do not know if that was recorded or not, but she was sitting next to one of my uncles, her brother, and she was just like, "You will never convince me that he had planned this." She's like, "You'll never ever." convince me
That this was at all planned.
that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only thing that really got out through that whole entire process. And then not one single word from them since. There have been pretrial conferences scheduled, there have been motions to dismiss evidence, there have been suppression hearings. Nothing, nothing has been said to them since that initial meeting.
But from the district attorney, yeah.
Mhm.
And there was never any consideration of anything other than first degree murder.
He said he will not offer a plea deal. And then he made a comment throughout it saying something like, well, I have evidence that you don't know about. And I wanted to say to him, well, I'm 44 years old. I've known him for 44 years. You've known him for maybe 24 hours. So don't sit here and tell me that I don't know the type of person he is. Like, who do you think you are? Is really truly how I felt. I was just repulsed and disgusted. And I really wanted to keep an open mind, like a really unbiased, really open mind, so I could, kind of be that platform for my family to really lean on. And then from that moment on, after talking with him, all that raw emotion just spews out where I'm just like, you want to know what? I can't be that wall. I can't be that rock. I have to feel this too. Like I have to go through these emotions of being pissed and angry and depressed and then happy and then swing that boomerang about around and it come back again a couple more times. So, once that kind of settled, I'm still here, I'm still grounded, I'm still really feeling my raw emotions. And it's almost like it feels to me like everything's in limbo. And I am one to get invested in things and, get my hands in it, get it dirty, see it, feel it, read it. And so not seeing a single piece of evidence or seeing anything in the defense attorney's office just eats me alive because it's like I have no control. And I've always had control before. I've always been able to see things and figure them out. And
Mhm.
not having that just is this out of body experience I can't even describe. It's like a piece of my identity's been
Taken away.
taken away because I have absolutely no control over that. And I think of all the things that have happened, I think that's probably one of the hardest things that I have to tell myself there's nothing you can do. Like of all the things you try doing throughout your life and you try controlling, this is something you cannot predict the outcome. Because I just think like a piece of me is just like, well, if I go to the defense attorneys and I say this, and this, or ask to help with this, maybe it'll help the outcome. Well, I can't do that. Like, that's such a conflict of interest.
And have you spoken or your family spoken with the defense attorney?
Yes. Yes. A couple of people
There's
have. Um, I did contact them on one thing that right now it's not been brought up to the courts. It was something that I felt might have had to do with their medical situation. And so I called it to their attention and I said, I don't want to lead you down a rabbit hole, but if I don't tell you this and later on it comes up on appeal and you didn't know, but I did, I don't think I could live with myself. So I pretty much put that ball into their court and said, do with what you need to do with that information, if it's relevant or not. But I have to tell you. And they were really appreciative. They were like, no, we appreciate the phone call. We'll kind of look into this and, look at some testing or research. They said, the worst thing is we can't use it. And they made me feel more secure and listened to than the prosecutor did.
yes, yeah. Well, and that's typically the defense attorney's position versus the prosecutor's. I mean, the prosecutor, once they have decided, it's the nature of prosecution, once they have decided to prosecute, that their whole goal is to convict. The goal of the system, as you well know, is supposed to be to find the truth. However, it's an adversarial system, and so there's competition and everybody wants to win. And
Yes.
prosecutors prosecute because, and partially because they're elected officials, they really want to win. I mean,
Yes.
it's part of the way the system is set up. So,
Yes.
so, so did I'm just curious, did the defense attorney order any kind of a psychological or psychiatric evaluation on your
Um,
uncle?
okay, so I looked this up online. I think there was a request for one or a motion for one. Now, if that was done, that is something I cannot answer. But there, and then that's public knowledge. If you want to go to Iowa courts online, something's referenced to that, but I don't know if it ever happened. I don't think that will be known until
Until the time of trial.
trial, probably. Yeah.
And are you in touch with your uncle at this point? You've
Yes, I've gone to visit him twice. Um, God,
And
he's
how
so
is he
funny.
doing?
I wish I could describe him to you in a nutshell. Like he's the one growing up where um he was the kind one, but he was also kind of the really goofy, weird one too. I don't know how else to word that, but weird and goofy in a good way, a very, very good way. Um, I'll give you an example of him. So when my cousin had her baby, we had a really big baby shower, and Jean couldn't make it. And keep in mind, baby showers, there's a lot of women there, a lot of estrogen, a lot of food, a lot of chatty and everything. Well, here comes my uncle, like 6 foot, I don't even know how tall he is, 6 foot something. And he's just like, hey, just didn't even bother him. He's in a sea full of women. And he's like, how you doing? How you doing? Just talk to everybody. And everybody loves to see him, don't get me wrong, but it's like it takes someone pretty damn brave to walk into a room full of women and try to converse with them where most women would just be like, yeah, yeah, here's your gift, bye. And so then Brianna started opening gifts, and my uncle just realized it kind of got quiet, and he just kind of turned around and he's like, oh, he just left. Just, he just would crack you up. And I don't know the terms or the words to use him. Um, I don't think he was intentionally funny to like, get people to laugh. He was just naturally like quirky
Naturally.
like that. And when I'd go visit him, I'm sorry, I keep laughing at this, because I really had to hold my composure at the jail. He's obviously not used to technology the way like you and I are used to it, especially in the COVID era. So the first time I visited him was the first visitor he had ever had, and I believe this was like July or August time. And he had to pick up the phone, and there was not the glass template that you normally have. It was a video screen, so I couldn't see him physically anyway. I had to see him through the screen. So it's not, it was in jail, but not in person in my mind. And so they're phone, and he literally is like looking, and he's like, it's everywhere. Like looking like I ain't even trying so hard.
Yeah.
Just not lose it. And then
Yeah.
he just, I don't know what he was doing if he was sitting down. Then all of a sudden it was just like you saw him in this like corner right here in the side of his head, and he was talking that way. And I'm just like, this is so classic of him. Like, not understanding how all of this works. So, when I saw him, he was very appreciative to have a visitor. Very, very appreciative. Really talkative. Um, the only complaint he really had was he's like, yeah, the food here's not that great, but what are you gonna do?
Right.
Um, and what else? He goes to the library a lot. He's lost a lot of weight, and that kind of concerns me because he wasn't a big man to begin with. He would say kind of if I were to describe his kind of body type, I would say like an older farmer. One that obviously had done a lot of lifting throughout his life, really tall, just not overweight, not skinny. But when I saw him, it was obvious he had lost weight. But that could also be with, his lifestyle before trying to take care of my aunt. They may have been eating a lot more fast food because they couldn't cook. like, because there's just no time, or, he just couldn't make the nutritious stuff. So, that can be part of it too. Um, he seemed in good spirits. He was, like I said, so appreciative, and said he needed to get a hold of my dad, and that he had been getting the cards that everybody had been sending. And yeah, it was a great conversation. It was a hard, the fact that when I left a jail instead of his house.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
hit me after the fact, because I had been used to going into prisons for the past probably 7 years. That was second nature to me. But when I physically left, it just, like, I opened that door and I just looked out in this parking lot and I'm like, he's in jail. Like,
Yeah, that's my uncle. That's my
yeah,
uncle in jail.
what just happened? Um, so yeah, I've gone to visit him, and I need to get back down there and visit him again. I was so busy last month, and this month I got to get back down there. So, but like the hours for visiting are so weird. Like, you have to get down there before like 4:30 or 5. Well, when I don't get off until 3:30, 4 o'clock, and it takes me 30, 40 minutes to get down there, I might talk to him for 10 minutes. So I got to find a day
To be
that I
able
can get
to
there.
yeah, to
Yep.
make time to go. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Well, and I'm sure that it warms your heart that people are sending him cards, that family
Yeah.
members are keeping in contact and sending him
Yep.
cards. That's, as we know, that's so important to people who are
Yes.
incarcerated on any level, to not feel like they have been abandoned by the outside world. I mean,
Yes.
they can get into a place of feeling like nobody, they're not even really alive anymore. So
Yes.
cards and letters and visits and phone calls make a world of difference to people who
Yeah.
are incarcerated for whatever reason they're in for whatever
Yeah.
reason,
Yeah.
because they are still people, they are still human beings and need human contact of some sort. So, and do you know when his trial is going to be? I mean, do you have an idea of
Um,
what's next?
it was supposed to be in November, but apparently there's a conflict, and now I guess the prosecutor has sent in a motion to move it to January, but I've not seen that online yet. So I don't know if that's the weight in that and the validity in that.
Okay. And as you and I know, that is not uncommon for people to get a date and then it's postponed and get a
Yep.
date and then it's postponed. It's part of the roller coaster of the system.
Oh yeah. My mom is just like, seriously, why do they keep doing this? And I'm like, that's part of the administrative process. Like, this happens all the time. And she's like, well, this is just stupid. We try to sort this out and get dates and get hotels. And I'm just like, huh? Like,
Exactly, exactly. You
no.
don't know that you're there until you're actually in the courtroom
Yep.
and it has started.
Yep.
Um,
It's like,
yeah.
don't count on anything until they say jury selections tomorrow. It's pretty much the vibe I got from it.
That's right,
So,
and even then, sometimes it can be postponed,
yep.
even then. So, yeah,
So, yeah.
it's it's difficult. It's very, very wearing on families,
Yeah.
overwhelming and wearing emotionally. So, well, I'm sorry that this has happened to you. Um, I'm very grateful that your family has you with the knowledge that you have and that you can be supportive of them. I hope that you're getting support for yourself also, because it doesn't work to just be the strong one with the knowledge. I mean,
Oh,
you're very affected by this also.
yeah.
And I want to thank you enormously for being willing to share your experience on this channel. I think it's invaluable for people to hear someone who is actually in the midst of the process, what it's been like for you and for your family. Is there anything that you want to be sure that you have said before we close for today?
Um, I would say to anybody out there that, that this has happened to them, absolutely, you're not alone. You may feel alone, you may think you're on this island by yourself trying to figure all this stuff out, but do not be scared to reach out. Do not be scared to be vulnerable and express your feelings, because if you don't seek it for yourself, it can bury you, and it can put you in a place that you haven't been before. And and I think it's natural because we're human, but think of yourself first. Think of your health first. Make sure you're getting sleep and you're getting rest and you're eating. Those things are so important. Um, because if you just, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like, is it dogging yourself or ragging yourself tireless? Or I can't remember the exact phrase that they used to be, but pretty much you're working yourself dead
Right.
with
Right.
emotions. And there's so much out there that you are not alone. And the one thing I would say about like my aunt and uncle is that, looking at this, as hard as it's been, I really think that, like, okay, first degree murder, we're now looking at apples to apples in a lot of these charges. Like, I don't appreciate the fact that my uncle is being compared to a sniper that shot someone off of a tower and killed someone.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
those are not the same. Those are not the same premeditation. So, just looking out there that if there's going to be a change in the system, we really need to look holistically at everything, like mental health, ages, because they're in their 70s, and my aunt was sick. This is not going to be the last time something like this is going to happen if we don't put resources out there for people, whether it be mental health or geriatric help or, medical help. You know, like I said, you go outside, there's a lot of problems in this world, and it just seems like the older I get, it's like Groundhog Day. You see a lot of the same things, and all of a sudden something new pops up. So just make sure, hold on to your friends, hold on to your resources, and be vulnerable, I guess is the best advice I can give.
And one of the things that I would say to add to that is that Cure, Iowa Cure, has a support group for family members and loved ones of people who are incarcerated or who are part of the system, who have been charged, who are in the process, who are currently incarcerated. And they can go and look at the website, which is Iowa Cure, and get information if they are interested in being part of the support network. It's on Zoom. It's the first Saturday and the last Tuesday, or the second Saturday and the last Tuesday of every month that we meet on Zoom. And Cure would be more than happy to have you if you find yourself in this group of people um, who have found themselves a loved one of someone who's incarcerated. So please contact me at the Gmail that I gave you earlier, Iowa Prison Perspectives at gmail.com, if you want information about Cure, or contact Iowa Cure directly. And either way, we'd be more than happy to be of assistance. Well, I want to thank you once again, Wendy, very much for being willing to do this and for giving of your time and sharing your story. And please thank your family and give them my best wishes. I really, really appreciate what you've been willing to do and willing to share. So, with that, we will close for today. And once again, I'm Sue Hutchins, and this is Iowa Prison Perspectives. And please, please email and let me know or comment on this video and let me know what your thoughts and feelings are about what we're doing here. I really appreciate it. And have a good rest of the day. And take very good care of yourself and take very good care of the people that you care about. And I will say goodbye for now.